We're live on the mic. Okay. uh, Such a silly boy. Silly. Okay, so shall we get into it? Shall we? Shall we? Shall we? Are we all set? I think we're all set. Are we live on set? We live on set. Hello, hello, hello again. This is Trey Hodges. Hello, Stellar people, and welcome back to the channel. Yes, my name is Trey Hodges, and last week we went over Wolverine. We did a 3-part starting an illustration, and we'll try to get that done before the game comes out in September. And I'll do some updates, I guess, maybe once a month for July and August. And then we'll get back serious in September. But for now, for the summer, we're heading into the summer months, and it's going to be a little bit slower around here. And I hope you also go outside and have barbecues and have some fun and have people over and whatnot. But today, we'll talk about all that at the end. Today, we're going to do comics. We're going to start a new comic project. I usually do one of these a year, and this is for Beautiful Beast Kiss. But first, before we get into, well, actually, can we do this first, or should we do that? Yeah, I'm gonna break down how I make my pages, or how I start a project. So this is my start. This is where I start from. So this is Beautiful Beast Kiss, chapter number 4. All these motorcycles, man. Chapter number 4, called Under the Sea. Under the Sea. And all my comics start like this, as a 2-pager, right? If it's a 24-page, this right here is a 24-page comic in the works. And it always starts off as a 2-page, either a 1-sheet if it's 12 pages or less, or a 2-sheet if it's 24 pages. So I can do 12 and 12. So again, I always start with what I want accomplished, written in just as note-taking form. So Beautiful Beast Kiss. First, I guess I should go into who Beautiful Beast Kiss is. And this is her. This is she. She is one of the characters that I thoroughly enjoy drawing. And she is a chaotic character who likes to have fun. Beautiful Beast Kiss. And she hops from dimension to dimension. And in each dimension, she has a different appearance. So it can go from very cartoony. So say like the early Nickelodeon's characters, how they were simply designed, to then maybe a chibi form, to maybe some European comic looking, to maybe an American comic looking, to futuristic. She can run the gamut, right? Every time she hops dimensions, she changes her look. So this is the title character. And here we have an example of Beautiful Beast Kiss. And these are her friends. Beautiful Beast Kiss in the center. Moktun is a child bull turtle child, the last of what I call the mythics, which are mythical creatures taking like human form. And she is one, even though she doesn't quite know it. Beautiful Beast Kiss is. But this is Moktun, the youngest of the mythics. And this is Demon Cat, who works for the Moon Princess on the moon. And that's where we went to last. And comic number 3. And she is, well, she calls him a friend, but he disregards that. He likes to be left alone. And this little bot was in comic number 1. This is Starbot. And Beautiful Beast Kiss has a gem on her left wrist that allows her, it's part of the Allspark, and it allows her to jump through dimensions. And she wants to collect more of them, or open up so they can share energy between them. She wants more of that energy. So this is what the curatives look like. And in another dimension, here is another form. Right? So every time she leaps, she changes form. And then sometimes I change the characters also to fit her style. So that is the characters. So then for this one called Under the Sea, it will also have Beautiful Beast Kiss, Mokton is in it, and Demon Tiger is also in it with a new character called the Sea Sage. And then I just write down images that pop into my mind about what the comic can look like. As you can see, I have some page, like the first page is a single. It would be a right-hand side page. And if you turn the page, then we get into the left-right pattern. Page 2. So evens are on the left-hand side, odds are on the right-hand side. And so you just keep turning the pages. And so I just break down anything I can think of that I think would be a cool panel for the comic, or a cool action sequence, or a story beat. I write that down. So for the story, I have Sea Toss, Drowned Sun, Tiger Shark, Into the Sea Explorer, Light of the Deep, DC and Mokton, Tea and Sea Cucumber Sandwiches, right? I just write out a list of things that just come to mind. DC Training and the Sea Sage Return, Abandoned Squire, and that is on all thoughts and ideas that I then do, and I do this in pen, right? I have a ballpoint pen or what is this pen? This is a Precise V rollerball pen, and I like it because it's very smooth on the paper. It can sometimes bleed through though, but that doesn't really bother me. And I just draw out tiny little thumbnails, just very tiny, very loose ideas about what could happen in panels. Then I take these and I plug them into the pages as I have them arranged. And this goes 1 page to 12, 13, since it's going to go to 24. But that 13 is also on this page, a little bit better drawn. And on this second half, 13 through 24, 25, I did the same thing. The characters and ideas about what could happen, banter, challenge, battle of the sun and sea, interruption, moon and sea sage, request and promise. See, I just write out whatever I think can be a cool image in the panel. And then I do the same thing. I draw these little tiny thumbnails off to the side. They don't even have to make real sense to me. I just do it because I think I'm capturing something, right? I try to get something out of my head and onto paper. That's all I really want to do with this 2-page. And I have my page ideas. I lay out the pages and then draw these little thumbnails just a little bit better in the page, right? Some effects and how it ends, right? So I have the whole thing pretty much out of my head onto 2 sheets of paper, and then a concept of what the whole comic would look like even when I turn pages from page 1 to page 2, 3, 4, turn the page, 4, 5, turn the page, 6, 7, turn the page. All of that is laid out. Now, let's talk about how I start my comics. I'm in the program of Clip Studio Paint. I used to do a lot of, well, not a lot. I used to do some comics in Photoshop, but I then have to make word balloons and balloon tails and panels and all of that. And it's a lot simpler, I find, in Clip Studio Paint. And so that's why, it's pretty much why I bought the program itself. So when I'm starting a new project, I Command N, right, and this little dialog box will come up. Let me turn this off. Oh, can't do that yet. Hold on. Let's turn this off. All right, Command N. And so this dialog box comes up. And can we zoom in? No, we cannot. Okay, so there's these little icons on top, right? So the one on the far left on this box is illustration. If you want to do illustrated work. Next to that is comic work. And I was using this in the blah, 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 blah. I was using this in the beginning until I found a better option. So we'll keep going through the options. Next one is for printing a fanzine. I've never printed a fanzine, but that sounds kind of cool. Next up is show all comics settings. And then the last one is animation. So let's go to this fourth one, this fourth icon, show all comic settings. And this is the one I use the most often. And I think Scott Drummond, who has a YouTube channel, I'll try to put that in the description after this is done. But I got a lot of these numbers on height, width, and all of these binding and default borders numbers from him. So the width is of the canvas is 7.0. The height is 10.75. Resolution is 1200. Yes, I like it large. Now the problem is it can slow down your computer, and that's why I try to limit the pages to maybe 3 to 5 if I'm doing them individually, and I'll show you why and how I do that a little bit later. The paper color is white. The comic settings, the binding finish size is width 6.63, height 10.25, the bleed width is 0.13, the default border inner size, width 6.13, height 9.75, the offset, X offset, and Y offset are 0. And again, I'll have a link in the description of who I got, I think, most of these numbers from. Scott Drummond, I believe. But I'll have a link in the description. And, okay, so here is one of the most important parts of this. It's multiple pages. So for page, number of pages, right now I have it set to 4 because I'm going to do a small thing. But if I click the arrow, it goes 24 pages. 24 pages is a standard floppy comic. 24 pages. So if you're going for a Marvel, DC, Image Comic standard, that's usually about the standard. Now usually it's around 21, 22 to 24 pages, given that some pages will be for advertisements in the big two especially, right? They sell ad space, so it's not a full 24, but for my purposes, 24 is the number. It can go up to 32, or you can type in the number of pages if you have an odd number. But know that you'll have to fill, if you're going to take it to a print shop, usually there's a standard set, and it usually goes in numbers or divisions of 2, 4, 8, 12, So just keep that in mind. So we have a 4-page count. I'm going to do a little something with that. But on the other side, there's cover page, story information, and all of that. And also, in Save To, I usually make a file and then I dump everything from the comic project into that file. I try to keep it all pretty neat and tidy. So I have, well, the last one I was working on was Willis Henry Chapter 4, so I made a file for that. So for all my comic projects, I usually have a file that puts everything into one file. But hit OK. And so here we have the 4 pages. Always starts on the right-hand side as the odd pages. Evens are even numbers. So the left-hand side is an even page. So 2 and 4. Odd numbers, 1 and 3, are right-hand side pages. So we'll click into this first one, page number 1. And I usually like to orientate the page like this. It's just how I like to do it. And this isn't what I wanted to do. So we'll take that down. That was something else. Okay, so now hit that. And there we go. And so, all right, this is how I like to have my pages set up. The pages individually or 2-page spreads on each. Right? And so let's talk about framing first. So this is what comes up as you start a new project. It's got all that information already inputted, and right, this is what it looks like. Scale up a little bit. Ooh. Okay, so if we want to start frame borders, we're going to do a little bit about frame borders and text. So let's say for frame borders, hit U, and then hit it again twice. On the far left side, I have my the tools icons. On the far left, screen right, we have the color wheel, the layers, and a small indicator of the page, how the page looks. But on the far left, we have all these little icons. And this one looks like a page slashed in half by 2 bars. That is frame borders. The shortcut hotkey is U. So I hit U twice. I already did that. Now we have divide frame border and divide frame border. Right, divide frame folder. Sorry, messed that up. And that is the top button. And this one it'll put every panel as its own folder. And I use that usually later. But usually I start with divide frame border, which is a lot simpler. But before that, we go to the top and create frame. Right, create frame. Touch that. Make sure the color is black on the color wheel right there. We're going to do rectangle frame. So now this little icon comes up and you touch into the center line. Right? I'm at this corner. And then I drag it down and it will snap to this corner. And then I let go. And what it does is that now you have the frame border and everything outside of it is outside of the frame. Right. So then after that, we go to cut frame cut frame border. We go back to this. And so at the second one, the bottom one, is divide frame border. And I can hold shift and it'll make a horizontal line. And now I have two panels, top panel, bottom panel. I can divide it again. Now we have 3. I can subdivide it again. Right? And why do I hold shift? Because if I don't hold shift, it will spin. Right? So you can make angled panels. Things that you see in like manga, a lot in manga actually. Actually it's almost everywhere now. But I usually think of it as started in the East, started in Japan and China, Korea. They do a lot of different border shapes. But now American comics are getting a lot. We're starting to bleed into each other, so that's kind of cool. So Command Z to undo those. But what I usually do is I usually do the horizontals. It's called gutters. Horizontal gutters first, and then verticals. So if I wanted a panel like that, and maybe there's 2 in this second one down. So doop, doop. And say this one had one like that. Ooh. I did not hold shift. Okay, holding shift. Nope, 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 nope. Okay, holding shift. Down, yes, there we go. And say the bottom one had 4 separate panels. So holding shift, boop, bop, bip. Right. And this is how we made a page. Now we cut out the panels of the pages. We'll cut the page into different panels. Okay. Or frames. I like to call them frames. Now let's talk about text real quick. Now T is for the text tool. On the far left, we have the icon for the A, and that is text. Shortcut hotkey is T. So I hit T twice. T, T. And there's the rounded balloon, the ellipse balloon, curved balloon, balloon pin, and then we get into 2 tails, the balloon tails and the thought balloon tails. Often I use ellipse balloon the most. Sometimes I use the rounded balloon, and what's cool about the rounded balloon is that if I click on that and then I go to this second little icon, I can change the roundness of the corners. So I have this checked, roundness of corners, and now it's at 7.0, and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, slightly rounded. And then if I hold T, I press T again, right, now I can type into it. So let's say blah, blah, ooh, blah, blah, blah. And then there's these 3 little icons. This pencil one is if I want to change the size of the font, if I have the font selected. I can increase the size of the font, or like if somebody's shouting, I'll sometimes increase the size of the font. I usually don't go above 14 point of size. And sometimes if I want them to whisper, I'll do the text a little bit smaller. So it's almost like they're whispering. I can close that with the X. The X will cancel it, and the check mark, if I touch that, means it's A-OK. And now, another important function or button or tool is this operation, which is the third icon from the top. Operation also use move a lot, and that shortcut is K. But for operation, the shortcut is O. So the hotkey shortcut O, and then I can change the speech or text balloon to fit it. And I don't want it too, like, I don't want it swimming in, I don't want the text swimming in the balloon. I also don't want it too tight. So that is, you got to find that right happy medium. Let's say like that. Blah, blah, blah. Let's do another one with a rounded. So hit T twice. T twice. Go back to the top one. And we'll go to the ellipse balloon. Ellipse balloon. Well, actually, let's go back to the rounded one. Rounded balloon. Go one icon over. And let's change the roundness of the corners all the way up to, let's say, 84%. Just about. And I'll show you the difference. All right, and this now is much more rounded edges than the first one. So sometimes when I do robots, I usually have robots speaking in a more boxy speech balloon, but I can have characters speaking more in rounded edges or oval shaped balloons. So again, T twice, right, and then touch into. Now these are now joined, these speech balloons are joined because this box is encompassing both of them. And I'll show you what I can do with that. But let's type something. Let's say, speak up now with exclamation point. And if we want him to shout, select that, pencil, we'll go up to, let's say, 12. That's a good size for that. Hit the check, and that's good. O for operation. But if we move it, right, it's going to change the size of both of them. And we don't want that. Unless we do, but no, we don't. So Command Z, but touch with the O, touch the balloon of the second one. And now that's red. And now we can shift it to adjust. Again, we don't want it too big. We don't want it too tight. We want it just the right size. And if I touch the text inside, and then I use the arrow buttons, I can move the text. I can nudge the text down just a little bit. All right. Back to the O. Is that okay? Touch out and touch that. Maybe a little bit bigger. So something like that. Now, if we want to link the two, let's touch outside. If we want to link the two speech balloons, hit T, and T again. Let's go back to, and we'll go to the bottom two are balloon tails and dot balloon tails. Balloon tails, and you touch into the first balloon. And I usually touch outside of it a little bit, and then into the next one. All right. And now they're joined because they're on the same level. If you want these two balloons to be on different levels, you make the first balloon, type in the text, and then make a new layer. Well, I go to a new layer, and then I'll type out something else, and I'll show you that in a moment. Okay, but that is the basics of comic. This is basically how I do the comics. This is how I start a page. But now let's make an actual something. Right? Let's actually do a thing. All right, so let's bring this guy back. Okay. Was this what I wasn't? No. Okay, I think I'm actually done with that one. Okay, so do I have an example? I think I have an example. Okay, so we're gonna do a little demonstration on something I've already started. It's in the beginning stages. Okay, so this is Willis Henry, and this is how the pages usually look. And I'll break down my page structure in just a moment. But I have page 21, 22, and 23. Now 21, let's start with that one. So how I arrange my pages is I have a bottom one called, well, just above the paper, holder early. And this is where I put, I usually make a thumbnail page, a page with very simple, very simple drawings. All right, let me turn some of this off and open this folder. Right, so I've imported this page, but let's talk about below that is a comic page template sample. So I scanned this from a comic page that I have. And right, so this is when I started Cup Steel Paint, the page, it made the page, but then I place into this comic template. And how do I do that? Well, I went to File, and then I import an image. Again, that's File, Import, Image. We'll go to, let's say, where are you? I think it's Willis Henry. A lot of stuff. Chapter. Willis Henry. Here we go. Okay, so in this file, I have a comic template page. And then I open that after I select it, open. It'll bring it in. It's a little bit small, so then I expand it to fill the space. Now, why do I do this? Because it already, right, when I opened up and started this project, it already did that. Right, there's some, right, it'll bring up this page with these marks on it, which is a rough approximation of, right, you want everything, this is called the live line, and you want everything important to stay within this area, right? You don't want important information outside of this. You also don't want important text outside of this one. And this is going to be the final border. Unless you're going to go all the way to the edges, which is called a full bleed. And I'll show you an idea of that in a moment. But why do I bring in a comic page? Because in case, right, this is the industry standard. So just in case I get a job, or you get a job, or anybody gets a job with Marvel or DC or Image Comics or any other independent comic maker, I like to have an idea of what their standards are, right? So that I can follow their standards and know pretty much what's going on. So on this page, there's the blue lines, right? And it says all bleed must extend to the solid line. And this is the solid line. At the very top, there is a place for your name, the date, the book's name, the issue, the page number, right? And I also like this information. Right? I like to have my stuff orderly and in a standard that is used pretty much by most of the industry. And that's why I bring in this comic template page. And also it has the blue lines, so that if I ever wanted to make something that has the very specific aspect ratios of traditional comics like from Marvel and DC, I already know what that looks like and can conform to that, right? Even though I'm using, right, I could shape this exactly how I want it, but I like to have the two ways. But for myself, because I do most comics and they're going to be shown digitally and not made into an actual floppy comic, I can usually disregard. But just in case, if you ever work for the big 2, 3, or in an indie that has this standard, you'll know what they're talking about. So there we go. That's why I import this, just in case. And for me, I like to have both. So I don't really need this because I have already 2 in here, so I can delete that and delete that. But here it is. Okay, so then after that, after I have the template in, then I usually have a thumbnail version done. Sometimes I used to do it in Photoshop, just really quickly, save it as a PNG or a JPEG, and then save all of those pages done very loosely, and then I would bring them in to the actual comic page. And I do that the same way. Image, import, image, and it would be, I have a file called Sketch Pages Revisions, and this is page 21. All right, I have them all arranged, numbered, and whatnot. And then I would open it. And it's below the actual page, okay? So then I scale it up to the page size. All right. Okay. So then once that's done, I don't need this page because I already have it in there. So again, that was File, Import, Image. And usually this is why I have everything in one file, all the stuff that I need in that same file so that I can retrieve it fairly easily. Okay, so that's holder early. Holder early. So when I first started this page, it had this blank page just called layer, and I usually just leave it blank. And I have it above my holder folder. And then I make 2 more folders. So new folder, and I do that twice, and I name the bottom one text and the top one frame and frame/panels, frame panels. And I put all the text in the text one, the frames and the frames. So let's look at the frames. I already did this before. And so here are the frames. All right, all done up. I have the gutters. I've expanded them and all that to fit how I want it. And also the text. All right, I've done the balloons, I've typed the words in, and I have my characters speaking to each other. But let's do this again. All right, and this is page 22, very much like page 21. On the, what I call it, the thumbnail version of the comic page, I do a rough sketch, right, of the characters, right? This other character doesn't even have a face, as I'll add that in later, because it goes through phases, right? This is what I would call the thumbnail version of the comic. This is just, again, to get the ideas out. Well, actually, this is more like a sketch version. From thumbnail to sketch version to type pencils to inks. And then you color the inks, and then everything usually comes in or comes together in the end. But in the rough version, I like to have written out the text. So what they could be saying, I just write it. So that's what's also included in this rough version. But let's go to page 23. Now I have my holder early. I have the layer that is blank. And let's add my 2 layers, my 2 folders, I'm sorry. New layer folder. Hit that twice. Folder number 1 becomes text. So text. And this second folder becomes frames, or also called panels. All right. So usually I do the panels first. So what was it again? It was U, or on the far left-hand side, it's this rectangular box with 2 slashes going through it. Frame borders, the shortcut is U on the keyboard. So hit that twice. And again, it'll be in the cut frame borders, but we want to first go over to create frame. So it's the button right next to it. Create frame. We touch into that upper corner and I drag down and it'll snap to the other end. All right, and now we just created the frame border. But let's do that again without my image in the way. So Command Z to undo that. Let's turn off the holder. All right, and so here's the blank page, nothing in it. So if I want to make my frame border, let go at the opposite corner, and there we go. Got our frame borders. Let's bring our image back and make the gutters. Again, I go horizontal first and then vertical. So horizontal, hold down shift if I want to lock it. Whoa, what did I not do? I didn't do the right thing. I go to cut frame border, and there's divide frame folders, which will make all panels its own thing where it has layers within it. But usually I start off with divide frame borders, which is the bottom option. And now I can divide into the panels. Holding shift so it locks and doesn't spin. Okay. Right. If I wanted it to not, if I wanted an angle, I could do that. But I don't want that. So Command Z. And this is why I do this, the early work of making an idea of where I want things early on, of the gutters, just so I kind of know where I want stuff. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but okay, so we did the horizontals and now the verticals. So the first one is just a big one. The second, 2 and 3 are divided. I think I want to move it just slightly to the left. Slightly. Another large panel. And then this one. I think this one's a large one, if I'm not mistaken. And then I divide. So this is a softer transition. So we're going from this panel, and then we're slowly transitioning into whatever will be on the next page. So that is the panels. So now let's do some text. Text. Oh, okay, for text, this is what I usually do. Oh wait, first. Trey, what are you doing? So on the frames, I collapse it. Oh, I forgot it's trying to save. Okay, there we go. Collapse that and then drop it into the frames folder. There we go. And now there's this blank, let's call it blank. This blank layer, layer 1. And you're like, why does he still have that layer? Call it blank. Blank is what I use when I'm doing text, and I'll show you why in a moment. So I tap on the blank, and then I hit T twice, go to the ellipse balloon, and so if I want this first text, right, I'm reading it. So I make the balloon about the size. It's about the size. And hit T again. And now I can type into it. So Vex is a villain. So Vex is cunning. So keep your wits about you, right? And so he just said that matter-of-factly. Now, this is text balloons is often an interesting situation, because what I want to do is I like to have the bottom, right? I like it to have thicker in the middle and then like one word at the bottom is usually how I like to have it. And depending on what you type, it can be all kinds of interesting situations. And okay, so Vex, let's hit return and then go down to the cunning, and then I just deleted the space between there, and now I'll increase. I hit the space bar to make a space. But maybe I don't want cunning. Maybe I want smart or crafty. So sometimes I work with the words. If it's too long, I'll try to think of words that are shorter and or more compact to keep the words from being all kind of a, right? It's a very interesting, right? So this I think is pretty good. Just keep your wits, keep your, yeah, keep your wits about you. And he said that matter of factly, he's not shouting it, he's not whispering it, so I think this is fine. Hit the check mark, hit the O for operations. Again, it's the third from the top on the far left, the keys. Or the shortcut is O. And I can adjust the balloon for the size. Again, I don't want it too cramped. I don't want it too big. So I want it just right. And I can hit K if I want to move the whole thing. So now I have the text written out. I can put it into place. And let's say he adds on a be careful. So on this same layer, we'll hit T twice, and then have it close to the first balloon. Hit T again, tap into the balloon. And you can see the box is incorporating both of those, so they're on the same layer. And B, return, hit return, careful. Again, set it matter of factly. And hit the check mark for it. Got that. O for the operation. And again, if we adjust it now, it'll do both of them at the same time. We don't want that. So Command Z, touch outside, and now touch the balloon. There we go. And now I can adjust it. And if I want to adjust the text within the balloon, I touch on the text and using the arrows, the arrow buttons to nudge it upwards and downwards. I think I want it just a little bit up. Hit O again. Touch outside, touch the balloon and shift it just a little bit. Okay. And now again with the arrow keys, I can move it closer to. Now I can make, right, I can merge the two if I desire. So sometimes if I have like a word, somebody says something and then changes the subject really quickly so that it's just like it's two thoughts, but I don't want to have, or two things being said, but I don't want to have them two separate things. So for example, if somebody notices, hey, I like your, oh my God, what is that? Right? I can have those two word balloons merging. So it's like a very quick succession of one thing being said before it's being overwritten or said by something else. But I don't want that. I want these two very distinct. So he says one thing, hit T twice, and we'll go to the word balloons. Balloon tails, I'm sorry, which is at the bottom of this. Now touch inside the larger balloon. I touch slightly outside just once and then curve that into the second balloon and then double tap. And that ends the line. And then I want the balloon tail to, usually we curve it towards the character speaking. So touch within the second balloon. Touch. Now I can make a straight, right? I can do it like that, but I figure that's more for if they're speaking very directly, right? Be careful. Or a more suggested way to me when speaking is a curve, right? And now this is just in my mind how I think people speak as interpreted by by word balloons. That, I usually, for direct, a more direct way of speaking would be just a straight arrow, right? Well, a straighter tail going towards the character. But if the words are, they're speaking like a normal person, there's, interplay between people, then I use more of a curved tail. But that's just, right? There's no real science behind this. Okay, so now if I want to start a new balloon, and it always puts your text in the frames file. I'm not sure exactly why, but I kind of like that, so I always know where my new text is. But then I take that text and I drag it and move it into the text folder. So then I go back to the blank layer, or the layer titled blank, and then T twice, go to equip ellipse balloon, make my ellipse, and then I hit T one more time, tap into the balloon, and make my text. Thank you both, I think is what he said. Thank you both. And that is just said straight. Now it could have an exclamation point, whatnot, but thank you both. And doesn't need to be changed, so the check mark with the circle, O for operation, O, and adjust the balloon to how I think the size, just about. Okay, so I'm using the arrow key to move it where I think it should go, and hit T twice, and then go to balloon tail, touch inside the balloon, touch just outside, and then curve it towards the speaker's mouth. Right. And that is the basics. Wow, man, that went by fast. Okay, so that is the basics of comics. And I didn't really even get to what I wanted to get to today, but I guess we'll save that for next week. Okay, let's save all of this. But that was just a short demonstration of how I make the pages in Clip Studio Paint, how I import, whether it's a comic template, by file, import, images. Usually I keep all my stuff for one project in the same folder. And I bring in, let's close these. I usually bring in a comic page, because this is without the comic page. It's the same because I did this. And then I bring in the page with the, whatever I want to call it, either a thumbnail or a rough sketch phase. It doesn't really look anything fancy. These characters are fairly simplistic in their own right, so it's not too difficult. There's usually not an especially emotive, or there's still some fiddling I need to do to get it to just where I want it. But that is the basics of how I start making, whenever I'm starting a comic project. It usually always starts the same way. Whew. Okay. So next week we'll start on the project that I was going to do today. This was let's call this an intro. This is we'll go over this in brief again next week when we actually do the Beautiful Beast Kiss, chapter 4. I'm still always amazed at how quickly these go by. All right. Okay. So thank you for joining me. I have been Trey Hodges. You can find my work at treyhodges.com. Power to all of creators, and I will see you in next week's Artcast episode. What is this? Episode number 11? Episode number 12, where we will continue with comic making, and I figure we'll do this for most of the summer. Also, before I go, I wanted to state that because summer's coming, and I'll be on summer hours because I got family coming in and friends coming in for their summer vacations, and I don't know exactly what the schedule is going to be like for most of the summer. I think the kids, my nieces and nephews, go back to school in mid-August. And usually once they go back to school, that's when I kind of start to settle down again. And so it'll be kind of up and down, kind of erratic. I'll try to have one every week. I'm not sure if the days are going to have to change depending on what's going on. But that's, I guess we're on summer hours. Also, hopefully you will also get outside, have some fun, enjoy the summer while you got it, because, it goes by way too fast. But yeah, I'll be here next week, and we'll take it from there. We'll see what happens for the rest of the summer. So take care and keep shining, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.